You are now listening to Testimonies with Terry.
All right, guys, I'm excited because today I have speaker, adventure enthusiast, and author of No Bad Days, How to Find Joy in Any Circumstance, JT Jester on the show. JT, thank you so much for coming on the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you and share a little bit about my life, but also, I guess, the story of No Bad Days and why that's so important to me.
Amen, dude. You have overcome so much in your life, and we'll obviously get into it here. But we were just talking before we hit the record button. And I don't know, man, I think one of the most impressive things that you've been able to overcome is being a Detroit Lions fan for all your life.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true. But we stay strong and we'll hope for better.
Hey, dude,
But
you're talking to a Vikings fan, so I kind of get that to a certain extent. But you guys have had a little bit more of a misfortune throughout your
yes,
history.
that's for sure.
But yeah, I like the attitude, having a positive attitude. Like you said before we hit the record, you had a pretty good season last season. Some things to be hopeful for looking forward.
I think one of the most important things is to have a positive attitude, and that is been something that in my life. First off, I think I was blessed with a personality that I always try to find the joy in things, and throughout those obstacles in life, to realize that there are positives out of everything, and learning experiences out of everything that we come across.
Amen.
So,
Amen. And dude, just reading your story and watching a couple videos on you, like the joy of the Lord, it just exudes from you, man. Like it is so obvious how you're able to carry that positive attitude throughout your life. And man, even just talking to you so far, it's only been a couple minutes, but it's contagious. I can feel it even within myself. And so let's get into your story here, JT. Typically people's stories maybe start in elementary school, middle school, college, just a couple years ago. But your story really starts from birth. And
it
so,
does.
JT, let's just go back to
Yeah,
that day.
I'll go to
Uh,
day one.
Day one. Let's go
So
for it.
Yeah, so day one, I was born with some challenges that I would have to overcome. I was born with something called VACTERL Syndrome, which is a birth defect that affects a lot of different aspects of your body, from your GI system. So from the top of your esophagus all the way down to your anus is compromised. I was born with what they call tracheoesophageal fistulas. So they were like endless pathways that didn't connect to anything. So from birth, those were some of the I'll call it a emergency surgeries, the ones that were done right away, and to repair the esophagus, and later on, I'd have more surgeries with the GI system to correct the imperforated anus, and then I had a colostomy bag during the first few years of my life to allow me to go to the bathroom, and from there slowly had things repaired and continued to fight through a lot of the different challenges with the GI system. And so the GI system was like I said, compromised, but with the VACTERL syndrome, other birth defects come about from something called tethered spinal cord, which is something that I had, where your spinal cord attaches to your sacrum nerves. So as you're growing, it's like a rubber band just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And so I had that repair done in middle school, and then once again in high school. And then with VACTERL syndrome, you can have different birth defects, from limb deformities to heart problems, and then the GI issues as well as the spinal cord. And for me, I was blessed. I only had a few of these things, and another reason I learned about, I guess, life and just the journey of life was because of these medical things. Every day was a challenge and was something that I had to put work into to continue on with success. And I remember one story in particular that really hits me hard, and is this story of my dad and I, and we were. I was in the hospital bed, and my dad came into my room. This is, I guess I was probably 10 years old or so. And he came in my room and he said, JT, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And I said, Dad, it's okay. There's no bad days. There's only hard days, and we get through them. And that is where, honestly, this story comes about, and this title is from that moment. And I honestly think, as a 10-year-old or whatever I was, it wasn't me speaking. It was the Holy Spirit speaking through me and speaking words of wisdom of what life is. And it's true that every day is a blessing, and we got to put our best foot forward, because we got to enjoy every minute of it, of life.
Right, man, just such profound wisdom in that statement. There's no bad days, there's just hard days. And like you said, that I was going to ask you that, like, before you had uttered that statement, have you ever heard that phrase before? But it sounds like that really was just the Holy Spirit speaking through you.
Yeah, totally. It was the Holy Spirit. And I think that message of no bad days, only hard days, when I look at my life, that's something that I've lived my life by, and just being able to enjoy every minute. And like you said in the intro, just some of my passions. I love the outdoors. I love, being able to do sports. I love, from hunting to fishing to climbing mountains to biking, all sorts of things. And that is stemmed, I think, because of some of these challenges that I've had. I found a way to go out and enjoy life, and to take and live every moment as the best as I can.
I love that attitude, man. I love that attitude. And going back to the VACTERL Syndrome, now, before I had read your book, I'd never heard of this before. Tell us, like, how rare is this condition?
Yeah, so VACTERL Syndrome, now, like I said, it's an acronym that stands for different parts of the birth defects that you can have. So VACTERL Syndrome is a broader title for, like me, I only check probably 4 of those or 5 of those boxes. But a lot of other patients have, much worse circumstances and much more challenges in their life. But, it is a pretty rare syndrome to be born with. I think around 5,000 patients in the United States are born with it every year, or some variation of it, I should say. And with that being a rare thing, I'm sort of on the upper end of age group with as being a patient with VACTERL Syndrome. So it's been a pretty cool journey, just like learning about that. And one of my goals is, with No Bad Days, the book, has been able to share other people's stories, and not just mine, but and not just about medical, but about education challenges and medical and business and all sorts of different things. But one of the things that's been really so impactful in my life and been so fun is been able to give back to children with these medical challenges, and I've done that through a foundation that I've started, and been able to impact a lot of families and their children and stuff with medical supplies support. So it's been a very fun journey.
Right. And again, man, I think that goes to show your heart. I mean, you're still a young man yet. And for you to have that focus of, I want to start a foundation that helps others like this. Like, I don't think a lot of people your age, like, that's not what they're thinking about, right? They're thinking about, like, my career, my marriage, my, whatever. And here you are, focusing on how can I make other people's lives better? And man, I think that's a great reflection of your heart. And, I think that comes too, just with how you grew up, as you were born and you were going through this, In the book, you talk about your parents' faith and how they really clung to Christ
Yeah.
during that time. Tell us more about that, just maybe kind of the history of your parents' faith and what that was like for them, being told that, hey, like, your son, JT, he has this, and this is what we have to do, and just how they were able to get through those trying times.
Yeah. So, I think my parents' perspective on this whole thing, because I always look at it like this: is being a patient. Um, you know, being a patient is the easy part. Being the caregiver is the challenging part. And so, when I look at my parents, I'm just so blessed and so thankful for what they have done for me and provided for me, especially those early days. With the research and with finding doctors to take care of me and to do what they have done for me has been amazing. But I think that I know that faith is the most important part of their relationship. And growing up, being able to live in with them and to experience this, I think that their faith was always strong. But then when a child like myself was born into the family and they had to figure out on their own what to do and where to go, and what do they turn to? They turn to their faith more and more, and I think it solidified that, and it allowed them to have this relationship, my mom, dad, and the good Lord. And there's one story specifically that comes to mind in the book, No Bad Days, is the story of my dad. I was born, I believe, like 8 o'clock at night or something like that, and my mom, my mom's in the hospital still, and my dad went home because the doctors told him, when you get back here tomorrow, it's gonna be a lot of work. It's gonna be it's gonna be very stressful, and you need to go home and get some sleep. So he went home. Now, he didn't tell my mom everything that was going on with me. Now, I was rushed off right to the NICU, and he checked on me before he left, and sort of let my mom rest because she had some of her own things going on. But with that, he went home and he got in bed and he opened up his Bible and he opened up to the verse. And excuse me for not having it with me right now, but the verse of basically, all God's children, he protects them and he holds them, and he just opened up his Bible, and that was the message there. And so the good Lord put that message in front of him for some reason, and that reason was because there was a lot of uncertainty, but he knew that the good Lord was there for me as well as them, and that's been that was early on. And then as you continue through my story with them, faith has just played a huge role throughout our family's life, and it's been really a fun journey to watch them, and in return, it taught me a lot about my faith too.
Yeah. Was there a certain point in your life, JT, where you felt like, hey, like, I'm taking control over my relationship with the Lord now? Like, I'm not just living off my parents' faith or my family's faith. Like, I'm making this personal for me.
Yeah. So I think that, that I like how you said that, because like you kind of, like you said, you're living off your family's faith because your family is very faithful and you're raised in the church and you're raised, being a part of all that and learning about the Lord. But that specific moment that I recall, I was blessed to be able to go, well, one thing actually with the medical stuff, we never thought that I'd be able to go to like a camp or to any of these things because I do a bowel management program every day as well. But with that, I guess it was middle school, right around there, that I went to this camp, and honestly, it was a kind of a trial run, but it went so well that I went back the next couple of years. And so a couple years later, while going to this camp, it was called Spring Hill Camp, and it's in Everett, Michigan, and they have another location too. But the camp is a Christian camp, and with that, you do all these fun activities, and you're out there enjoying nature and God's country, and then you have this amazing time with the people you're with, but then you have these counselors as well. Well, those counselors really nurtured and were there for us. And so one specific moment that I devoted my life to Christ, I was there at the camp with a few of my close friends, but we were at a campfire, and the counselor said specifically, if you guys want to stick around and just chat, about anything, if you want to pray about anything, we're going to hang out here, and we'd love for you to hang out and join us. So I did, and that was the specific moment that I devoted my life to Christ. So, and a fun little side note to that is I have this really cool picture of me writing in a little journal, because the camp had us write a journal entry every day. And I'm dyslexic, and that's another part of the book, is my struggles with dyslexia. And with those struggles, at that time in my life, I could barely read or write at all. And so for me to write a journal entry was pretty funny, because I wrote in there, and we have it, that, tonight, it all misspelled, but tonight I devoted my life to Christ. And
that is awesome.
I think it's pretty cool little thing that we have, because in the flip of that, in of the story of dyslexia, is the medical stuff always came first in our life. But as time went on, I told my parents, how important it was for me to learn how to read and write, and that was a time in our life that was another challenge, but we overcame it.
Yeah. Hey, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony, right? That's kind of one of my life verses. And dude, I'm just so happy that you had that moment where like that relationship with Christ became personal for you, and would be obviously the key for helping you to continue to overcome challenges. Like we said, just right out of the womb, challenges. One thing that sticks out to me about your story, JT, is how God would always put the perfect people in your life at just the right time. You talked about how, right before your first birthday, you had surgery to correct the perforated anus, right? And
Yep.
We keep it PG on the show, but, the doctor said, hey, I created the perfect a-hole, for you. I loved that. But talk to us even about that. I believe his name was Dr. Pena.
Yeah, so that first doctor was Dr. Rector, who performed that surgery, but
okay.
Then there is Dr. Pena as well. And so Dr. Pena, God put people in my life, and to this day, I continue to see it. And it's amazing, his work and who he puts in there. And back to those days, Dr. Pena was brought into our life, and it was before the internet, really. It was a big thing. So my parents' research was picking up the phone and just calling and reaching out to doctors and friends, and they got this connection to Dr. Pena, and all my medical stuff was being taken care of in Detroit. But when we were introduced to Dr. Pena, we quickly picked up and but we spent, at the end of it, it was probably 250 some days in a hospital in Long Island Jewish Medical Center to be with a doctor, Dr. Pena, who specialized in this. And God put him in my life, and truly, he changed my life. He gave me the ability to live life like I am. He gave me the quality of life. I had one surgery with him that was a fairly new surgery at the time. It's called a Malone procedure, and they actually take your appendix, attach it to your belly button, and then from there they attach it to your large intestines, and I catheterize myself through there every day, and I put in a 500 cc's of a glorified enema, and that flushes out my lower GI and takes care of the fact that I have no motility throughout my GI system, so it cleans me out basically. But before that, I had to do a bowel management program in a different way, and that took, an hour and 30 minutes or so every day. And now it takes me a half hour or 45 minutes at the most to do this bowel management program. So and then it allows me to do it by myself, not with someone else too. So the quality of life, that he brought me, and then just, again, the doctors that, were brought into my life for the medical, the good Lord did for me, and then the education path, which is something we can chat about too.
Yeah, for sure. When building off of the whole enema, situation and how that has evolved for you throughout the years, man, one part of the book that you talked about was you would have this friend that would come over and play with you. And, when it was time to do your treatment, as you went on to call them, mom would set up a table like in the bathroom for you guys. And I don't know if you guys would play Legos, or I forgot what you guys would do,
Yeah.
but like your friend was just like, this isn't a big deal. Like, whatever. Like, I just want to hang out with you. Like, tell us about that, man. Like, how much did that mean to you at that time to like have a friend who like was able to just see past the struggles that you had and to just want to be friends with you, the person? And maybe even more than that, like, what were friendships like for you throughout your life? Did you deal with any bullying because of your medical conditions, and if so, how did you overcome that?
Yeah. So, the treatment side of it was pretty cool that we could, if we could do that, and that he was okay with it. And I had other friends that at the young ages that it was fine too. But that friend is the actual friend that I went to Spring Hill Camp with too, and who still is, my closest friend. And so, very great relationship that we have. But, friendships and the bullying side of things, the medical piece definitely, there's times I'd go to school and I'd have accidents and I'd have different things that would happen to me. But I had a pretty good system of figuring out how to get through that, and my parents helped me out with that too. But one of the most important things when it came to the medical or education, because when you're in fifth grade and you're not you're reading at a first grade level, and you're getting pulled out of the classroom to be tutored and to do all this different reading programs and stuff, you stand out and stuff. But one of the most important things that I learned was the fact that if you told people what was going on in your life, in people that you trust, and also people that people that you trust, but also the fact that when I told them the medical side of things in my life or the education side, I was honest about it, and I was spoke from the heart, I think is really an important aspect of it too. But by sharing my story, it allowed them to share and open up to me about what was going on in their life. Because we all have a story, and we all have our challenges and our difficulties, and our things that we have to overcome or we try to hide. But having a friend or someone that you can talk to about something in your life allows for it to become a two-way street and for both of you to communicate.
That's so good,
So,
man. That is so good.
I was blessed with, and I continue to be blessed with great friends that I have, in the younger ages was never brought to any teasing or anything like that, bullying.
Wow, man, God's grace with you on that. That's what I see, because unfortunately that isn't always the case, right?
Of
I used to do some work in schools, and I'd have some students that would have to go to the nurse's office to, take a medication or to take, insulin for diabetes or something like that. Speaking to those kids, or maybe even the parents of those kids, JT, what advice do you have for them? If there's a child who is maybe feeling like an outcast or just different because they have a medical condition that they need to take care of throughout the school day, what advice can you give to them?
Yeah. So I think that the advice that I can give is, the fact that, we are going to have those hard days in life, but every day is a blessing, and just keeping your head up high, and to being determined to do what you want to do and want to accomplish, but to find people that you can surround yourself with that are like-minded, are loving, compassionate, and will take care of you as well is so important. And you can find those people, and by putting your heart into others, and helping others, brings out the best in people. And so I always talk about finding your tribe, and that's one of my chapters in my book. And that has been probably the most crucial part of my life, is finding that tribe around me, the people that are going to support me, whether it's whether I'm going through the hardest times or through the best times. They're going to be there for both aspects of it.
Love it. Great advice, man. And before we go into kind of the academic struggles that you had, the one last medical thing to kind of touch on, you mentioned earlier, was the tethered spine stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, you went into detail in the book about what that was like, the surgeries, the recoveries, and it does not sound like a very fun recovery. But tell us a little bit more about that, JT. How did that affect you? What relief did you get once the surgery was done? Maybe let the listeners know, what did recovery look like for you? Things like that.
Yeah. So tethered spinal cord was by far the most challenging surgery that I had to overcome. I went into it in middle school-ish, and had the first tethered spinal cord repair. And it's funny because when you're young, I was never afraid of doctors or the hospital or anything like that. And so I'd go into these surgeries, and such as a spinal cord one. And I just went in with a attitude of, you know what, I'm going to be down for a little bit, but every minute that I'm down, I'm going to be working on getting back up and climbing to the potential that I had before. So I had no doubt in the surgery to not be successful or anything like that. And so, that was always sort of my mission, was like, okay, we're going to get knocked down a little bit, but we're going to keep going. And one of the doctors that has been a big impact in my life said this once to me. It was, or to my family, that, when you're going into this, I'm going to think how he says it, but when you're going in, when you're playing baseball, do you step up to the plate and do you say, I'm going to get struck out, or are you going to go for every swing and try to make it a home run? And so I think that, with the spinal cord surgery alone, it was like, I'm going to go into this with as strong as I can, and I'm going to come out as strong as I can too. And so it took me many, many months of physical therapy and my own working out and stuff like that to get to the area that I am now. And now, still have, different things with the spinal cord that I have to take care of, but I can live life to the fullest and do all sorts of adventures. So I'm very blessed.
Yeah, praise God. And part of the recovery, it sounded like you had to lay flat on your back for days at a time. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So the good thing was I think with a lot of surgeries these days is physical therapy or PT comes into the room right away and starts to move you and get you moving right. And so I had that immediately, which is important. Get moving, keep going. Don't get yourself down, but also physically, literally getting up and moving is the best thing for healing. So I went through physical therapy for, in the hospital for, weeks at a time or whatever. But then from there, I did have to lay flat for, several hours a day and stuff, and throughout the night, because that was where I was comfortable. But I had to make sure that I still got up and moved throughout the day to keep things progressing too.
Yeah. And man, I mean, such a rigorous recovery from that surgery. And how long after that did you find out, man, I got to do this again?
So I found out a couple years later, 2 years later, that I was retethered, and so like I said, how the spinal cord attaches to the sacrum nerves, and so as you're growing, it's pulling on those nerves and causing discomfort down the legs and pain and stuff like that. Loss of bladder control I had, and other things too. But so those symptoms started to come back. I started to have a limp. I was walking the halls in school and I was limping. And I had, in high school, I was having bladder issues and, couldn't make it to the bathroom or do different things like that. And so that's when we knew what was going on. And so we had an MRI and we realized that I was retethered. This time I was not tethered to the sacrum nerves, but I was tethered to the scar tissue that surrounds the sacrum nerves. And so with that, went back in for surgery. And now I'm a little bit older, and going into that surgery, I knew what was coming. And I knew what I would have to overcome. And honestly, like I was saying in the last little bit about how I never was afraid of surgeries, or never, I always knew I could get through the recovery. But when you're having the same surgery again, and now you are, at an older age, and you have an outlook on what it actually entails, that was challenging mentally. And one of the most important parts was, I had my tribe with me. I had my family, and I had the same doctors there to help me and support me. And so with that, I was able to go into that with as positive a mindset as I could, and to power through it again. But mentally it was tough, and that was, when your faith becomes really, I always look at it like this, like when it comes to faith is, sometimes, or I think all the time, when you're going through the challenging moments in life, your faith becomes super strong, and you rely on God. You're there and you're praying and everything. And one thing that I always, revert back to is the fact of like how strong my love and my faith and my prayer life was during those moments. And I think it's important to say prayer life too.
Yeah.
And because, when you're out of that and you're in the good days and you feel good and you're doing good, and other things are going on, you can't forget those moments of how close you were then, because it's equally as important now as well. And so it's, I think what I'm trying to say is, throughout these different experiences, you've learned different things from them. And that's one takeaway that I've had as well, is just how important it is to stay strong in your prayer life.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that I'm a follower of Christ and I have faith, but it's another thing that when life does present challenges to you, that you still choose to follow him. And it's like the rubber meets the road. It's like I can either choose to really make my faith real in this moment, or I can let, like you said, that mental battle, those mind games, get the best of me and get me off track. And it sounds like, even though maybe you had some struggles there, you always made that choice to come back to faith, and knowing that is what's going to get you through. And
Yeah.
man, I just, watching football, being football fans like us, we hear all the time if a running back comes from an ACL injury, right? Like, it's not so much a physical thing, it's more of a mental thing. It takes like 2 years for them to get back. And man, it just goes to show the power of our thoughts, of our perception. And you've really, it seems like, really mastered that ability to always come back to having that positive outlook on life.
Well, I try to stay positive, so been blessed with that.
Yeah. And I'm curious, JT, how common is that, talking about the spinal cord injury, how common is that to have it retethered like that?
It's actually fairly common, which we knew going into it, that it was a possibility. But it's not like it always happens. So the fact that it happened for me, was the doctors, knew it could happen, but yeah. So
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm glad to hear that that you haven't had to have a
I'm
third
retethered.
one.
I'm retethered now too. So, but the good thing is I'm not growing. So as long as you're not growing, there's no things that can happen with that, or pain or discomfort. So
Gotcha. So even though you're retethered, you don't need like another surgery or anything.
nope.
Praise God. Praise God. Well, like you said, JT, the physical challenges you've had throughout your life were kind of only half the battle. You've also had some academic challenges as well, with dyslexia, with short-term memory issues as well. Take us through that. Like, at what point did you or probably your parents recognize that, hey, like JT maybe isn't where he's supposed to be at when it comes to remembering things, retaining information, or just reading and writing?
Yeah. So I'm going to back up again. So we did the medical stuff, but during that medical stuff, I was in, first grade, and in first grade, the teachers, would say, JT's he's not where he should be right now, but it's okay. He's a boy, first off, and second off, he's, being taken out for surgeries, and he's, out of school for 200 and some days at a time, and, he'll catch up. Well, we heard that year after year after year, and when fifth grade hit, we realized that, we're still in the same boat, and it's still not working. And I was in a school that was a private school in our area, and that school, I had the public school help coming in to support me as well, and with that I had an IEP, which is basically a letter that shows your support system throughout school and all that, and so I would be pulling out of class for different tutoring things. And then in fifth grade, my parents had a meeting with my IEP meeting, I should call it. And during that meeting, they were told, and in return, actually, I was told too, which probably wasn't the right way about doing it, but I was told that, JT, is illiterate and is not able to read and write like the other kids. You're gonna have to learn to cope with this, and on top of that, you're gonna, you can't come to the school anymore. And so it was at a weird time in our life that this happened, and it was again, God put people into our life at this time, and a friend of ours said, you have to try this program, and it's called Fast Reading and Learning. And so at the end of the fifth grade year, the school said I wasn't able to return to the school because I couldn't keep up with the other kids. But at the same time, Christmas time came, and we had been trying this program for several months, and I was having success with it. So my mom and I, I should say, packed up, and we moved to Denver to go to a school that specialized with this program, and it's called the Denver Academy and the TADM reading program. And so with that, went through the program, and I had amazing success, and ended up coming back to the Detroit area and was homeschooled throughout middle school, which ended up working out great with different surgeries that I had too. And at the end of that middle school time, and being homeschooled, the administration had changed at the school that I was prior, and so this, I still, even though I was reading at grade level, the comprehension and other things were still struggling. They were much better, but they're still struggling, as they are today. And so the school headmaster, the new headmaster, came to us and said, I really want you to come back to the University of Liggett here, and I want you to come here and show that we're a school that accepts everyone and is able to work with anyone and whatever your learning differences are. And so I did, and ended up going there and graduating from there and going on to college at High Point University, and in which all that was a pretty remarkable part of my life, because prior to that, I think that myself, but my family too, didn't think that I would ever go to college. And so it was a big life-changing moment.
Definitely, man.
Yeah.
Again, just like God's hand over all of that there. I want to back up a little bit. 10 years old, you're told, hey, you can't come to school here anymore, basically because we don't think you can keep up with the other kids. And not that they outright said it, but if I were you, and I don't know if this is how you took it, but if I were you, I would kind of translate that as, oh, they think I'm too dumb to come to this school, or they think I'm too
100%.
stupid to come to this school, right? Like,
And,
talk.
and and I was told that by the headmaster of the school before my parents' meeting with the IEP stuff. I was in the hallway as a fifth grader, and the headmaster of the school came to me and said, at the end of the day, said, JT, you cannot come to this school anymore because you can't read and write like the other kids. So I ran home and was laying on the kitchen floor, hitting the floor, crying, telling my mom all I want to be able to do is read and write like every other kid. And, when you look back at that, like, yes, that's a bad story, right, of what happened to me as a fifth grader. But I think one of the coolest things I look at it, I think about the positivity of it. If it wasn't for that headmaster, if it wasn't for that moment at that school that said you won't be able to read or write like other kids, we would have never been introduced to the Tatum reading program or the Denver Academy. And so God puts these obstacles in your life, and at some moments it's like the door's closed, but it's actually, a new door opening and a new opportunity showing its way. And so some people always say, well, it's terrible what he did. But when I look back at it, I say there's a reason for, things to happen like that. And I would thank him to this day right now.
Right. Well, and that's the heart of the Lord living in you right there. Love your enemies, right? Not that he's necessarily an enemy, that's maybe a little strong, but
but I know what you're saying. Yep.
Yeah, but a guy who basically said, hey, you're too dumb to come here. And now all these years later, you can come back and say, hey, I just want to thank you for, saying that essentially, because it propelled me onto this path that I am now. And again, like we talked about earlier, God putting the exact people you need in your life at the exact right time. Dr. Tatum, he was the one that really, allowed you to develop these skills to read and to write. Talk to us, JT, about what was Dr. Tatum able to do? What was his method that just made things kind of click for you, that, words weren't jumbled anymore, or backwards, or, all sorts of misconceptions? What did he do that it just finally clicked for you?
Yeah, so for me, it was, as a lot of people think of the jumbled words or flipped words or backwards. For me, I don't have any of that. But what I had was just, honestly, the struggle of sounds and pulling together words and stuff. So the first meeting I ever had with Steve Tatum was on the other side of town here in Detroit. And it was late at night. It was his only opening and opportunity because he was training all week. And so he said, I would love to meet with JT, but honestly, this is the only time I can do. And so we went late one night over to his hotel, and I went into a little conference room and sat down with him, and he pulled out a flip book. And I call it the classic flip book. And basically, the book flips, and then you read a word, and you flip it, and you read a word, and you never know what's on the other side. And in my eyes, I said, this is just another program. I don't want to do this and stuff. Steve looks at me, and he says, okay, good job, JT. He takes that flip book, closes it. He says, you'll never have to see that again. Throws it across the table. And he pulls out this magnetic board. And this board has different sounds and consonants and the vowels. And they're all laid out in a unique way with different colors and stuff. And it's supposed to represent the vowel galaxy. So you have the Big Dipper, which is like your vowels and your vowels that are put together like OU or AW and stuff like that. So, and then you have your ers, R, or, ER, all these different, and they create the crescent moon. And so basically it's a visual picture is what I'm trying to show. And with that, I was able to, visualize these sounds and to be able to put these things together. But that first night, the most beneficial thing was the backside of the board. Backside of the board was like your tiv, siv, ashun, ubble, and these different things. And what he did is he connected them. So it could have been re-rupt-able. So like a 3-syllable word. And the biggest thing for me was the fact that all of a sudden I went from a non-reader to being able to hold on to the re-shun and put it together and read a 2-syllable word on that first night. Nonsense word, but and so leaving there, I had the confidence that he instilled in me to be able to go and try this program and to really make it work, and it did. And it's done for so many other individuals too.
That is so cool. Yeah, has that since spread throughout the U.S., or is it still kind of like a localized thing?
No, it definitely has spread. Now he's from Denver. Originally is where the program and him were. Now he's in California teaching the program, and then he's been here in the Detroit area. He's taught thousands of teachers in the Detroit area here, and been able to train them to be able to use the program with other students and stuff. So it's definitely out there and stuff, but we're always trying to spread the news of it because of how impactful it was for me.
Right, man. Well, God bless Dr. Tatum and the work that he's done and is doing. And a powerful moment in your book for me, JT, was, I forget the specifics of it, but one of your old teachers kind of came back. I don't know if it was at graduation or you had gotten some type of certificate, but like they couldn't believe that, wait, JT can like read and he can write? Tell us about that moment.
So that story was about a teacher who helped me so much throughout school and stuff, but it was actually during a demonstration of the Tatum reading program. We were showing our local community. So I'm going to back up a little bit here, and I'll keep it as brief as possible. But basically, when I left Denver Academy my 5th grade year, from Christmas to summer, I left there and thinking, we were going to go back there. We didn't think I'd be homeschooled. But when we left, I said, I was crying. And I told my parents, I'm not crying. No, they're like, you'll see Steve next year. Don't worry. And the other teachers. And I said, I'm not worried about seeing the teachers or Steve. I don't care about that. I care about the kids at home that can't just pack up and come to Denver. And so Steve at that moment said, you coordinate the teachers, and I will come and I will teach the teachers, and I'll come to Detroit. So he continued to come to Detroit and do that. But we thought it was important to show our community how impactful his program was. And so we invited all the educators and teachers and like that teacher who taught me in a resource room and stuff with reading and writing. And she knew, she was there during that IEP meeting, I believe, too. And she knew that I was never going to be able to read or write. And so she said, she came up to Steve and myself and my parents and said, this had to be rehearsed or this had to be practiced because I know JT, and no offense, but JT could have never read that. And he said to her, do you have a piece of paper or something in your purse that, you could pull out? So she pulled out a receipt, and I sat there and I read the receipt off to her. And she left there crying, just knowing how positive it was for me, but also the program.
That is amazing. Man, God's goodness is, again, just so like on display throughout your story here, JT. And part of that too, like you said, parents and maybe even yourself never thought you'd go to college, but boom, you get accepted into High Point University. And again, talking about like people in your life at the right time. You talk about how there was a certain man there that just kind of made it clear that, okay, this is where you need to be. So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
That's one of my favorite stories. I used to be they call him an ambassador at High Point, and so basically I took families around to show them the school and share what the school is all about. But this story I always share because it's so God working, and it's so cool. So we show up to our tour of the school when I was in high school, and we get out of the car, and our tour was the next day. But we thought, you know what? We're here early. Let's just drive by the campus. It's on the way to the hotel, and we'll go walk around the campus. So got out of the car, and we're walking down what they call the promenade, which all the academic classes are along. And as we're walking down that promenade, we're looking at the business school and all these different schools, and we look to the left, and the chapel's letting out, and my dad says, there's the chapel. There's a whole bunch of kids coming out. Let's go take a look. Let's just see what the kids are all about, and check them out and see what it's about. So we went over there, and we obviously, me being a high schooler, I was probably like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. But we went over there, and basically we stuck out like a sore thumb. And the president, this was a Wednesday night, the president came over to us, and Dr. Nito Cobain started talking to us and sharing his story of the school and his story. And 45 minutes later, we had heard his whole story and about the school and what he's done with the school and how he's growing it. And he said, where are you guys staying tonight? And we told him the hotel, and he said, well, where are you guys eating? And we said, we're going to be eating at the hotel. And he goes, they serve hot dogs there. You got to eat here on campus. So he set us up on campus to experience the school and the food. But I think the main message that I took away from that was the fact that he came in, he was there on a Wednesday night, and it was late at night. He came over to us. He talked to us for, 45 minutes. And then he takes us to the restaurant that he wants us to go to. And from there, he tells us, I would eat with you guys, but unfortunately I got to get going because my wife's yelling at me. It's my son's birthday, and I'm an hour late. And so he ends up going off and stuff, and we're taken care of. But what I realized is the fact that first off, the statement of the school is God, family, country. And that is something that I love and thought was so powerful. But then for a president to be there on a Wednesday night at the chapel with the student body on his son's birthday, just shows that if he's willing to do that, what are the professors willing to do? And I think that that's a message not just about the school, but it's about life. Like, where are you devoting your time? And where are you nurturing and helping others? And for me, he was there nurturing those other students, and he did that throughout my 4 years at the school. But also, just how are we helping others to learn about the Lord, or to walk in their faith journey and help them through that? And so just devoting that time in the right places is important, because it made an impact on me, and we can do that to others too.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. Again, I've said it before, but I love that about your story, how it's so obvious how God he's so strategic. He's so strategic with our lives, and he just has everything planned out, the right people at the right time. And obviously you went on to graduate from High Point. What was your time there like, JT, especially like academically? We talked about some of the struggles you've had, but also some of the successes and tools that you learned through the TADM program, through fast reading. Did that just help carry over to get you through college? Did you have to learn anything else or make any other accommodations to get through?
So that definitely helped me so much throughout college, and continues to help me now. It helps me with writing books and doing that kind of stuff too. But I think, my experience at High Point, I knew I needed to go to a smaller school. And so High Point honestly was the biggest school I was looking at, or one of the biggest. And so with that, I had, unbelievable relationships with the teachers, and having that kind of almost one-on-one experience with them, going to office hours, and just putting my time into where I needed to accomplish success at the school. And they had programs too, which honestly they're not like a school that is like huge into disability support. Like other schools was looking at the time. They still were, but not like the other schools. But because that's what we thought we needed more of. But at High Point, they offered everything I needed, and they had a program called Learning Excellence, and that program was a huge part of my life too there. So, yeah.
What did you end up graduating with there?
Business administration. So,
praise God, man. And then I think shortly after high school, or shortly after college, you talked about how you went on quite the expedition here in climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, of all things. As if overcoming all these medical issues, as if overcoming all these academic issues wasn't enough. Hey, let's try to climb, Mount Kilimanjaro, right? Like that's just the mindset that you have, and I love that. and again, people in your life at the right times. I believe it was the man, while you guys were living in Colorado, who taught you how to ski, then went on to become a good friend, him and his wife, and that's who you made the journey with, correct?
Yeah. So Lottie Slough, or Lottie, I call him for short. Lottie said, JT, when you graduate college, what's something you want to check off your bucket list? And he taught me this passion and love. He was a ski coach of mine, but he taught me more than that. Life lessons, but also love and passion for the outdoors. And so with that, I had this opportunity where he said, JT, let's go on an adventure. Where do you want to go? And I said, let's go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And so we set out to do it. And Lottie likes to set goals, and I love to set goals. And so with my medical stuff, kind of had to set a goal to get on and off the mountain as fast as possible. And so we set a goal of doing it in 4 days, to summit in 4 days. And so average pace is 6 to 7 days to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And it stands at 19,341 feet. And it's the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. And so we'd set out of training, and lots of training in Colorado. And then from there, we headed out to Tanzania and had to figure out how we do my medical stuff on the mountain, and we had amazing guides and porters to help us get up the mountain and do all that. So overall, we made our goal of summiting in 4 days, but it did not come easy. And the reason it didn't come easy is because the first 2 days went great. The third day, we went past the highest elevation that I had ever been at the time. And then the following, we spent the night there at 16,000 feet. And the following morning, we'd be reaching the summit. And so we did what they call an alpine start, starting about 4 o'clock in the morning and heading up. And we were doing a route called Umbe route, and it's the most challenging route. And so we got to a point on the route where our guides, we had to cross some glaciers and stuff, and our guide said there's no turning around anymore. And so we have to finish this out. Well, with my medical challenges, I can get different little gut problems or stomach aches or stomach problems, I'll call it. And so we're in this high altitude and we're filtering all of our water and stuff, but unfortunately, just about an hour or so after we had been at that point where they said we cannot turn around, we have to keep going, I started to feel what I call a hot stomach, and my stomach started to toss and turn, and in the end, I don't want to get graphic, but you know what happens from there. You get a stomach ache and you take care of business.
Oh yeah.
And so that business continued to dehydrate me throughout the next several hours. And that dehydration caused me to get altitude sickness. And so there was points where I was on my hands and knees crawling, and I had a red backpack with my gear in it. And our guides started saying to us, he said, JT, let us take your backpack. Let us take your backpack. And I said, I want to finish this with what I came with. But fast forwarding, we got to a point where I couldn't carry that backpack anymore. I had to give it up. And so we pushed on and ended up making it to the summit. And long story short, it was an amazing experience. And just a spiritual feeling too of like something I never thought I'd accomplish, but the good Lord helped me do it. And I look at that red backpack now and I think about what it means to me is the fact that in life, I had those porters and the tribe members right there. And in life, we can't do it all on our own, and we need the good Lord to help us, and we need those tribe members to help us and to take that backpack or take some of the weight out of the backpack as we go along our lives.
That's what was going through my mind too, JT, is just kind of that active surrender, right? Like you kind of have this attitude that, no, I want to finish with what I started. I want to get to the top with what I brought with me. And sometimes, as human beings, that can almost kind of become our downfall because it can become pride. Like, no, I don't want to. I want to do it my way. When the Lord is just like, no, dude, just like give it to me. I promise it'll be easier, right? And as human beings, we just got to surrender that. We just got to be open to like, okay, God, like, yeah, I trust you. I will let you carry that for me. And so I love how you were able to take that lesson out of that.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you.
And so JT, since then, what have you been up to? I mean, you're running your foundation. You said you just got back from Germany. What's been going on in your life?
Yeah, so I love adventure still, so I'm always running around doing different things and exploring. And so I say Germany, but I was in the Alps skiing with a friend of mine who's doing some adventure hiking and skiing out that way. So that was another adventure. But right now, my main work is working on these books and my first book, Untether, and then No Bad Days, and then I have a children's book out called How the Sailfish Got Its Name, and a new children's book I'm working on. And basically, the public speaking and the book writing has been a passion of mine, and what I want to continue and am continuing to do. And then the foundation is a big aspect of all this, and being able to help support individuals with medical challenges, specifically around the VACTERL Syndrome area, allowing for medical supplies for children in that area. And then the education front with my dyslexia, I have a passion for that. So giving back to the TADM reading program and being able to teach and train teachers and teach students the program. And then is where the foundation also helps. And then the third pillar of the foundation is the faith side and how important that is to me. And I participate with a program called Young Life, which is nationally throughout the United States. And so we've been able to support many different Young Life groups throughout the country.
Amazing, man, so amazing. You do so much, and you do it all so well. And like you said earlier, you're a goal guy. I'm curious, what are some of the goals that you have maybe within the next 5 to 10 years? Short-term goals.
Oh boy, where do I start? No, I am a goal guy. I love to set goals, and I have my fun goals. My adventurous goals, which honestly they all revolve. The fun ones, I make them all revolve around something that they're going to benefit back to. So I have a bike event that I'm doing in Leadville, Colorado, 100 miles of biking. And then I'm doing a thing called Rim to Rim to Rim in the Grand Canyon. And so I do different events like that, but they're all centered around the foundation and raising money for the foundation. And so some of the goals are to be able to achieve those in the short run here. And then long run goals is to grow the foundation and to continue growing the public speaking side of things too, and doing more and more with that, which has been a huge blessing. And I've had a lot of just great times with that too. So yeah.
Man, your story is amazing, JT. As you look back at it and all that God has brought you through, and you reflect on his goodness through it all, what comes to mind?
Yeah. Just how good the Lord is and what he does for us. And I think, we've talked a lot about the people he's put in my life, but all of our lives, right? And then the story that I'm writing with God, and he's got it all mapped out, and we're working through it, but just making sure that you stay strong in your faith and continue with the journey is what's so important.
Yeah, and I love how you do give all the glory to God with this, JT. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, with all these medical issues, the spinal issues, couldn't read, couldn't write. And here you are all these years later. You've written multiple books. You're writing more books. You're doing public speaking. You climbed Mount freaking Kilimanjaro. Like, you have taken every limitation and everything that the enemy has meant for evil and given it up to God, and God's used it for good, and you're giving him the glory through it all. And that's what I love most about it, man. And I would just encourage you to obviously continue doing that so that others continue to see God shining through your life.
Well, thank you. And thank you for this time too together, to be able to talk with you and to share, how the good Lord's worked in our lives and continues to.
Yeah, man. How can people follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, so JT Jester Speaks on Instagram. And honestly, all my social media is the same. So JT Jester Speaks, and then jtjester.com.
Check it out, guys. I'll link that all below so you can find it really easy. But JT, this has been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm feeling super inspired just by you and your story. Thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.